1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me take a look at what do you got. I'm pulling to the speculation station a lot. Speculation station.
Hello and welcome to the Speculation Station podcast with me, Will, and...
Me, Tom!
That's us! In this podcast, one of us brings in a mystery object. Today, that's me.
What's an object? What kind of object?
you
What
don't
sort of
know.
object? We'll have to find out!
It is a bloody mystery.
Yeah.
And the other person today, that's Tom, is just going to have to speculate on it like wild, aren't you?
Yeah, I am the other woman.
Yes, but to be honest, we don't spend much time talking about the object because we talk about whatever we please.
We talk about a whole load of nonsense, shall we
Yes.
have fun while we do it?
We do. We don't have any internet.
No.
We just got what's up here, really.
Yeah, we're locked in this room, and we do the whole thing in a single take.
You say locked. We're not locked in here. We've just closed it. Closed the door.
Oh, don't forget Matt put a padlock on the door when we weren't looking.
You have to be pretty swift to do that. Now,
Right.
I'm going to go back to my normal voice.
I'd rather you didn't, because...
we do the whole episode like this. All right. No. I'm going to reach neath the table.
I shall close my eyes thus.
No one says neath anymore, do they? Apostrophe
No.
neath. For good reason. It's foolish. Now, hold out your hands in a standard arrangement. That's fine. You really won't guess what this is just from feeling it, I'm afraid.
Because it's a box
'Cause it's a
containing
box.
something.
So you may look at it now.
There's a little hooky loop at the
Yeah,
top.
you can guess if you want.
Everyone, for those on audio, this is a cardboard box.
Yes.
Glossy finish.
Yes.
It is elongated, very long.
Rectangular, shall we say.
Yeah, an obloid, I believe is the correct. Okay, opening my eyes. Oh my gosh, it's Thor!
It's a
Thor action figure from it's the Titan Hero series.
yes. Remember that?
No. But it's a sweet Thor action figure, and most pointedly, Thor has short hair in this picture.
Short hair Thor. Do you prefer short hair Thor or long hair Thor?
Obviously, short hair Thor.
You think
Yeah,
he's pretty sexy like that?
I think it genuinely suits the guy, and he's
Yeah, he does, yeah.
he's much better looking.
Beard and short hair. That's
yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good look.
This is actually my wife's.
Oh wow! Of
It's
course.
one of her Christmas presents I bought her last year. One of her silly presents. Because she loves Chris Hemsworth, of course.
I mean, what's not to like?
All of the big Chris's. Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, Chris Pine.
Yeah, okay.
There's another Chris. Matt can tell us if he remembers who it is. I can't remember. Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pine, and Chris Eubank. No. It's the British boxer from yesteryear.
Chris Eubank.
Eubank. Who talks like
Chris
this.
Akabusi.
See, we're going really far back for an international
Yes,
audience
yeah,
who won't
well-
know who we're talking about.
Yes, and my wife is a big fan of his brother in the same movie.
Loki, played by
How can I not remember?
Cholmondeley Cathworth, I believe is the actor. Tom Hiddleston,
Tom
right?
Hiddleston.
not
How can I not remember his name?
Not Cholmondeley Hacksworth.
Yeah, so that's excellent.
Now,
That
I
really
cleared
pleased
this
me.
with my wife before I brought this here. You
Good.
can open it, but you must open it from the bottom, please.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. She keeps them in the box,
Oh,
as I was telling Matt,
It's
because... Yes, it's fine. Break the seal.
you sure?
As long as it's from the bottom, yeah. She keeps them in the box because she gets the action figure of Hemsworth and the photo Hemsworth on the front and on the back, so she can admire him from many sides.
Be as careful as I can.
While you're opening him, I'm going to ready the first question card. And we probably should have mentioned this. We have question cards so we can ask questions. You get it. You know what's going on. So the first question, pretty simple. Do you want this? Bearing in mind you can't have it. It's my wife's. But do you want this?
Yeah. I mean, it depends whether I want the toy or his buff physique.
Well, let's start with the toy. Did you have action figures when you were growing up? Was that a
We
thing
had a
for you?
few. We kind of smashed them in with all the other toys, you know.
Yeah.
Mostly like robots and transformers and stuff like
Did you
that.
have action men?
Didn't have action men ever as children.
I never did. I had friends who had action men or action mans because it's the same guy.
I'm not going to take him out of the.
Oh, he's actually kind of stapled into a box.
With a sword.
Oh, he has a goddamn sword. I did
I'm not sure
know
about
that.
Yeah, that's.
He never has a sword in the movies, does he?
No, well, no, it's an axe in the latest one rather than a hammer.
Matt has an input.
That would be Idris Elba's character's sword.
Oh, and he puts it in the Bifrost and opens the bridge.
Yes, yeah.
Well done, Matt. I was like, why
Can
does
you
he have a
remember
sword?
Idris Elba's character name? Because I should.
Idris Elba's
I
character
should,
name.
because I heard it probably only the other day from my wife.
And Matt might know it. Go on, Matt.
Heimdall?
Heimdall, yes.
I mean, maybe Matt should be sitting here
Yeah,
and we'll go away.
Yeah,
Good knowledge.
Anyway, excellent.
Look at his biceps. Jeez,
yeah, look
I've got
at
to touch
those. Yeah,
those.
anyway, oh gosh, yes. They're
Matt,
photorealistic.
Did you have action figures growing up, Matt?
Yeah, I had a Stretch Armstrong.
I always wanted a Stretch Armstrong.
I never had one, but kids I knew did. They were so much fun.
Yes, I'm going to lay him out.
Lay him out on the speculation
Sort
table.
of supine, ready to be assaulted by...
Oh, it's eye patch Thor. Does his head articulate? It does. Do his arms articulate? They do, but they're kind of locked in at the moment.
Yeah, well, I just imagine he's on the rack and he's been spun down. He's in prison. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, so he's either there to be tortured by some bad guy.
Yeah.
Let's presume Thanos because of the...
Or Jeff Goldblum.
Actually, that's sexier, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum
Do you know,
is sexy.
there's a huge thing about Jeff Goldblum's character, the Grandmaster, I believe he's referred to. Sort of variously having sex with different of the Avengers in a very sort of dom sub position, particularly obviously Loki, but Thor as well, and all of them. He's like the dom of doms.
Yeah, that's right. And you mentioned your wife is a big fan of Loki. Is she more attracted to the character of Loki and or Tom Hiddleston as the person?
Oh, I'd say 100% the character Loki.
Okay, that's cool.
But she's quite happy with Tom Hiddleston as well.
You wouldn't kick him out of bed, as they say.
Yeah.
You could take him home to your mother to meet her. Yeah, I get that. It took me a long time to get like why women were so into him, but then I got it.
It's not necessarily how he looks, but it is. Yeah. Oh, and my wife sent me an excellent GIF the other day.
I think you'll find it's pronounced Jim. Fucking idiots.
But yeah, which basically said, sort of explained, what is it? A well-tailored superhero costume is to women what, perfect lingerie is to a man. Right?
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So it's form-fitting and accentuates the male physique.
And it's not just that, it's just that the characterful element, that sort of like, that...
Although, to be honest, lingerie doesn't really do it for me. No.
I'm not a lingerie guy.
Well, as many people have said for many years, there's something to be said for leaving things to the imagination.
Yeah.
The less that's left of that, the less interesting it is. But a pair of hot pants is sexier than a pair, like a thong, let's say, because I can imagine more about that. And it is form-fitting, and you've got more clothing to accentuate a figure rather than to just show it off.
Though, talking about accentuating a figure, I do think, unfortunately for Thor, his nipples, it's a bad look, and they toned it down in the later movies.
By nipples, you mean the kind of studs on his chest?
Yeah, because it's like cat nipples, is what I mean.
They are, look, because he's got... there are 6 of them.
They really in the latest movies because they realised how stupid it looked, but in the original movies they were really big and glowy and like gold. And
no!
So that's why as a character he's gradually looked better, and the movies have been written better around him.
They've been made better, full stop. And weirdly enough, do you remember who directed? Was it the first 2 or at least the second one? A very strange person to direct a Thor movie.
Oh, wasn't it Kenneth Branagh?
It was Kenneth Branagh, who we talked about in a previous episode about the Wild Wild West. So he directs those, and I remember watching those movies, and in the credits at the end it says directed by Kenneth Branagh, and I just thought, what process in the Hollywood mechanism happened that someone said, you know what, we're making more of these Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, we need a really good hand on the tiller for directing the Thor movies. You know what? We need stage and screen Shakespearean actor Kenneth Branagh.
I could but there's where I think their thinking was though. Oh, he does Shakespeare,
so he can lend a certain substance.
Particularly, I was thinking about the Thor franchise because Thor doesn't speak in it. He speaks in a very sort of like classical,
a stylized, dramatic,
very
way.
Stylized, very sort of oldie worldy speak sort of way. So that maybe they thought, Kenneth Branagh, he can do that good. But I will say, I saw a number of Kenneth Branaghs when I was at school and when I was studying acting. We watched loads of Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare.
Like the really long Hamlet.
Oh, I actually think his acting in it, and I'm sure he's a far better actor than I or either of us could ever be. But
definitely me.
But it was just so flat,
and
so like not enjoying the material and really. And I for me, Chris Hemsworth probably would make a better Hamlet.
Maybe he was aiming for understated, and it ended up as just as you say, flat, which is the worst thing you can be in almost any performance. It's just absolutely flat.
With Shakespeare, I say you got to lend a little ham to it, because the language is already ridiculous. You might as well enjoy that language.
That's true.
Yeah, and I see arguments the other way and whatever, but I say why not ever enjoy it.
I'm not a massive fan of Shakespeare when it comes down to it. I enjoy the comedies and I enjoy the oeuvre in a certain way. If I get what he was saying and I get his shtick, but It's a bit too dramatic for my taste.
Yeah, I think it's the iambic pentameters too much, but without Shakespeare, there would be many turns of phrase which we do not have.
Oh, he and Dickens, in the British language, English language, created so many household terms. Even the term household name or household term is a Dickens creation.
It doesn't surprise at all.
And Shakespeare himself created so many of our words, our common words and vocabulary that last to this day. I can't think of any right now. But they obviously had an indelible effect on the English language and English fiction and culture and mythos, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't help but be proud of living in a country where we have Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, and was it him who said, "For whom the bell tolls"?
For Whom the Bell Tolls
Where
is...
did that come from?
I think...
I know there's a book by Ernest Hemingway.
For Whom the Bell Tolls...
I don't think he created it.
And there's actually an extension... The phrase is longer than that. Like so many of our famous phrases and expressions, it's actually longer than that. We only remember the first bit.
Yeah.
I think it's for Whom the Bell Tolls and the bell tolls for thee.
Oh yeah, of course.
Something
and
like
the bell tolls for thee.
Look at his acting. He brings it out.
So much acting.
I have deepened my voice.
And thus I am a classically trained actor.
Yes, and I'm taking a pause, which is very dramatic.
And pregnant.
A pregnant pause.
I notice you roll your R.
Yeah, you like to roll lots of consonants, not just ours, don't you?
Well, I try to roll L's, but it's not very easy. You could slightly do it with the Welsh, you see, Llanfairfecyn.
Well, when I was driving over today on the motorway, I had lots of cool songs on in the car. One of my favourite songs to roll R's to is the Run DMC song, It's Tricky, which is It's tricky to rock around to. And I try and roll everything, so it's tricky to rock around, that's right on time. But the word tricky, tricky, because you've got to hit the hard T and then the rolled R, tricky.
And rolling an R does make you a better person, I think.
Yeah, my wife can't do it. So she's obviously a worse person. She'll accept that. She knows she's a terrible person. No, she's a wonderful human being, my wife. But she can't roll her R's. She can, however, make an owl noise, and she has taken to doing it multiple times every day. Like she sticks her tongue out like in a curled tongue, and then she goes like, ooh. But I'm doing it terribly, and I'm working upstairs, and I hear this little hooting from downstairs. I've told her that if there's an owl in the house, we need to exterminate it, but she keeps doing it.
Oh.
Does your wife make strange noises outside of the bedroom?
I mean, probably, but the thing about my wife is she's infinitely quiet. In the sense that I can be in a room being busy, and I'm slightly deaf. I'm happy to admit that, but she'll just appear right behind me.
Okay.
And it proper freaks me out. So I'll
Yeah,
do
see,
a whole
my
jump,
wife-
and sometimes a high pitched scream.
Yes. Well, see, I like to scare my wife as much as I can.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Hide
my wife
behind
scares
doors.
me.
Okay. Well, see, my wife can't hack silence. And we walk every day. We walk twice a day usually because we have a dog, which is a great incentive to walk. And I love a quiet walk. I love a silent walk. You, nature, the world around you, the soft pitter-patter of your feet. Cass can't do that. She has to fill it with nonsense and noise. And she says, you'd miss it if it was gone. And every time she goes away, like on a business trip, I love it. I love having a lovely walk. Me and the dog, silent as can be.
I don't know, because we do a long walk on a Sunday, and it depends. It's usually one of us doing all the talking for the whole way. I mean, more often Mariel than me, but sometimes I will do it.
Interesting.
But more often it's one of us who wants to talk about something, I guess.
Sure.
So it's just. So I don't know. I think there's a certain enjoyment. I can walk on my own other times, when I want the quiet walk.
To be honest, if my wife is at home, I wouldn't say, okay, darling, I'm off for a walk by myself. That'd be weird. Also, I wouldn't call her darling. What are your pet names that you're happy to say on air? Fuckwit. Hey, fuckwit.
Well, my wife puts the word, husband. She puts the word bund.
That's cool that she uses that.
She uses it, but she does use husband, but then she puts other words on the front of, instead of hus. She put usually rude words that
Like
aren't necessarily just like that.
Yeah.
In fact, exactly that.
So, one of our friends, great couple, Anna and Dale. So Dale's surname begins with a G, and his wife Anna calls him DG. She goes DG, and it's just the cutest, nicest name I've ever heard. And it's the tone as well, and you can hear when someone has a lot of love in their tone of voice for their loved one. For me, I love the word lovely as a noun, calling someone lovely, and I got it from the HBO's Mad Men, and it's one of the more horrible characters. Pete something, I remember his name. He's one of the more snaky characters. But he calls his wife Lovely. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's a really lovely pet name, for want of a better word. It's lovely. And I use it for my wife. I use it for dear friends as well. I would, especially lady friends, I call them Lovely, because it just sounds nice and it rolls off the tongue with the lovely.
The public one I use for my wife generally is I say MCAT.
MCAT,
after Brass Eye.
Yes, and the drug MCAT.
The drug MCAT.
Which I believe she doesn't like, right?
What?
Marielle. I believe she didn't like being called MCAT.
Oh no,
she allows it from you, probably.
Yeah, doesn't care about it from me, but yeah,
Okay.
probably not as a name generally. That would be too much.
But I almost, if it's a normal request conversation or anything, I probably use my wife's name.
Same.
But for everything else, I rarely use it. I just use a pet name. Yeah, and even for friends as well, I did the same thing. Like, you in this podcast are Tom. But really in the friendship group, you're Bilbo, which is a long story which we won't go into. It has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, really, does it? Even Matt, who's in the room with us now, very quickly became Matto after we met him. I think it's very particular to the British and the Australians.
Yes.
The Australians love to do it, especially with the letter O, Matto, Jono, Davo, we're going down the pokies like that.
Is that how Australians really talk?
It's not far from it. Some of them do.
Right,
I've been told by Australians that this is not a bad Aussie accent.
Is that right, Jimmy-O? Willow?
I don't think they'd say Jimmy-O.
Jimmy-O? Willow?
Jimmo. Or just J-O.
Peter-O?
Peter-O. Maximilian-O.
Sounds a bit like pedo.
Oh. Well, the Americans can't say that because they say pedophile, don't they? Pedo. But I think they have started saying pedo for the short version, and pedophile. We can't. This is not a light conversation topic for the podcast. We will move swiftly on. Chris Hemsworth, back to Hemsworth. Hey, I'm in charge. I keep thinking
it's all down to you. It's your fault we're in this hole we're in.
I keep thinking you want to take a question card. It's me. I'm in charge today. Here we go. Okay. So the question is, does anyone avoid this? And you can take Hemsworth or action figures or a Hemsworth doll, whatever you want. Anyone
or
avoid?
Thor.
Or Thor, yeah. Does anyone avoid that?
Right, so who avoids buff dudes? There's a start.
Yeah, people who are anti-buff dudes.
People are scared. People who are pogonophobic might be afraid.
What's the word?
Pogonophobic.
Which is what?
Fear of beards.
That's cool.
So
I did not know that.
It's the Latin. It comes from the Latin for beards, which I can't remember. It's probably like
Pogus or something.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, and it's just it's a common thing that lots of people have is the fear of beards as well. Pogonophobia.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the word.
Mostly children have it.
I never heard of the fear either. So what's the idea, that it's just intimidating?
Yeah, and I think assume it's people who didn't grow up with a dad with a beard or something, but. It's just the idea is just a scary thing because it's a weird sort of growth on somebody's face, and especially children. I think some women, I think some men as well, are genuinely have a disgust response.
Well, I have a disgust response to body hair in general.
You have a disgust response to
because
body hair.
I have so much
I have never
body hair.
seen anyone with more body hair.
Well, not in real life, but in fiction. Robin Williams had more body hair than me.
Maybe
way more.
Sean Connery's quite body hair-esque.
He is, absolutely. He's more hirsute. Hey! But yeah, I developed body hair at a really young age, and I hated it. These days I don't mind it so much, although just like Malcolm in the Middle, my wife has to shave my back and shoulders every few months. But everything else, legs, arms, chest, I don't really mind. But I don't like it on men, I don't really like it on women. I find body hair really detestable. But on myself, I don't like it on myself, but I've grown to tolerate it, let's say.
That's interesting, because when I was young, I wanted more body hair to become more manly, right? Yeah. Because when you're young, you're all sort of naked on your skin is smooth,
yes.
And you cherish every last fleck of dark hair. Because it means
you're growing up, you're more of a man.
Yeah. And I think mine came in sort of slowly and gradually. My body hair, and I think I'm happy with the amount of body hair I have. Except maybe a little bit too much growing up my neck sometimes.
I think everyone gets that in some way. But
as you get older, of course, the ear hair. And the nostril hair.
Oh, you got to pluck that shit right out.
It's got to go.
Right out.
All got to go.
But it's interesting that relative perspective, isn't it? That you grew up wanting more, I grew up wanting less, and it's always a grass is greener situation, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
You always want what you aren't having or don't have. So really you should just say, you know what? There are people out there, kids out there who would love to have body hair, and I've already got it.
Exactly.
I also got my first grey hair in my head.
Of course, yeah.
At 12.
Which is ridiculous.
And it was literally on my 12th birthday. I went to get my hair cut, and the hairdresser said, you know, you got grey hairs. And I was like, what?
You're an old man now.
Yeah, but I instantly loved that. Body hair, no. Grey hair, yes. I love my grey hair because it's
You might as well embrace it. Silver fox.
Silver fox, and also being a young teen with grey hair, it's different and it's cool.
It's kind of a bit goth as well.
I guess that, yeah. And I remember my dad saying, because he had, well, obviously now he has a full head of white hair, but when he was my age in the teens and 20s, he was one of those people just had a little location of grey or white on his head, like a spot of it, like some people get. And he grew his hair long. So like Rogue in those X-Men movies, he had a silver streak in his hair, and people thought he was really pretentious and he dyed a streak into his hair. And people say that to me, like, have you dyed your hair grey? And I said, like, look at the fucking roots, buddy. Do you think, like, spending this time speckling grey throughout my head right down to the roots?
Why would you as well?
I mean, I get why people would.
The grey streak is, you know, it is cool. To some
and
extent,
white hair full stop is cool. Man or woman, head hair, facial hair, I think white hair is cool.
On the hair front, since we're on that, what about your beard? Did you grow that? Did your beard sprout young, or did it come
that's
through
interesting
later?
because it kind of did and it didn't. And you and I both have the same situation where we're lucky that we have a relatively good coverage of facial hair, but we don't have the hipster lumberjack coverage where it goes like almost up to your eyeballs.
You can trim that, you know.
Well, no, I want that. My hair only grows up to kind of just above my jawline.
Mine goes maybe perhaps a little higher than yours.
Okay,
I have to stop it.
Okay,
only a little. But
I'd like it to be more up there for a fuller beard, but it doesn't do that. So, what was your question?
Did you have it when did you grow a beard?
So I got patchy hair to start with around the chin. As you can see, it's always been very well covered. The lip, the mustache took a while. Now it's okay. Everything else was relatively patchy, but I really wanted to keep my facial hair as a kid, and I wore it to school a lot. And I remember one day it got too much for my housemaster, which is a very
the fact you had a housemaster.
Yeah, it's very short sign of private schooling, or as we've said before, public
Hogwarts.
school. I basically went to Hogwarts. If you look at my school, it looks like that for sure. And my housemaster said, "Nope, you're not having that." And the housemasters at my school lived in the house where we were at. So it was a physical building. One half of the building is for the kids during the day. That's their house. And the other half of the building is for the housemaster to live in by himself or his or her family. Right. And he took me up to his part of his home, gave me a razor, gave me a shaving foam, and said, "Shave the fucking thing off." And I was so angry about that because it took a long time to grow back then. These days, as most adult men have beards, it grows like nobody's business.
And I think I remember because I really first dived into growing a beard at the end of my first year of university. I had a challenge. I actually spoke about this a little in a blog, but I had a challenge with a friend, actually a mutual friend of ours at university, who can. Let's just not shave for a while. I sort of grew a rubbish, like sort of spindly goatee. Which, and which then I kind of stuck with. And basically, we both grew it up to the end of the year, and we sort of had a challenge. Neither of us really won, but I never shaved mine off since then. Really,
this is always say since then.
Yeah, but I've had a few periods where I had to shave, usually for performances, acting performances, stuff like that when I was on stage. Or certain kinds of recordings. If I was doing a particular film or shoot or something, I had to shave. And I always felt like a certain nakedness and a certain...
Absolutely, I agree.
My face felt incomplete, yeah.
The second I left school, I stopped shaving. And in between then and now, about 15 years length of time, I've shaved it off once, and that was university, and I hated it instantly. As you say, I felt naked, I felt almost weak. Yeah. Not in a masculine sense of you have to be strong and have a beard. I felt like I was missing something, and I felt like I wasn't a real person.
I think some people are just like that. Some people are beard people, and they as soon as they get a beard, you're like, no, that's me. Let's be sorted.
It's not really a fashion choice, although these days I try and shape it so it's stylish. But it's just I have to have it.
I've always sort of shaped it because I mean traditionally I went for the more sort of D'Artagnan, let's call it.
Yeah, the musketeer look.
The musketeer look.
You're quite happy to change your facial hair here and there.
I go through phases. I go, okay, I'll have a goatee for a little while. I had a long goatee for a while, and then I did a standard goatee, a very tidy one. And I've done a very small classic, what do you call it?
Like moustache and soul patch?
Moustache and soul patch I did for a very short time.
Which is quite cavalier looking.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of weird. I was looking sort of cavalier, a little bit sort of like swashbuckler.
That's it. That's a good way of describing it.
I tried that, and I've more lately gone for a sort of more full beard, but still with the
little wisp on the end, the little pointed wisp,
I can't escape that.
So I'm way more happy to change the hair on my head, my actual hair.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, I used to shave it off because it was a lot easier. We both got thick, lustrous hair, which I'm sure people want to have, but it's a lot of hard work. So I just shaved the whole thing off. Now I do prefer having hair. It is nice and it's good for work and what have you. But yeah, head hair, I'm happy to change. Beard hair, generally, I've locked it down for now.
I actually, I had long hair for a long time, down to my shoulders.
That's right. I forget that these days.
Down to my waist almost.
Yeah.
I actually still have it.
People used to call you Jesus.
Yes, people used to call me Jesus.
Very original.
I can't imagine why. But I had a proper long hair, and I still have that hair. I was going to donate it, and I never ended. I was going to donate it for wig growing or something.
You still have it?
I still have it.
That's cool.
It's actually within reaching range, but I'm not going to right now.
Okay, so the old Bilbo hairs, we say.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it or look at it really.
Sure.
But
it is weird to touch hair that's not attached to you.
And it's not like it's degraded, because I made sure it was washed and everything before I did it, and it's just I've still got this sort of weird sort of like, and it's all wrapped up in hair bands, it's almost like a plait sort of thing.
Oh, that's like a long rat tail.
Yeah, I never look at it, and I never want to look at it, but I sort of can't bring myself to get rid of it.
Of course, no, it was a big part of you.
Yeah,
right?
and it was sort of almost a religious act, cutting off the hair, and then I just shaved down to bald for a while and did the whole goatee bald thing and walked around for a little bit, and the reactions to me entirely changed when I was walking around with long hair and the beard. Everyone, I get the Jesus. People saying, Jesus,
it's just generally derogatory.
Why do you look like that? Why have you got long hair?
You're different.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. As soon as I shaved my head, nobody...
no one would say anything,
And I went into a takeaway at some point, and this guy went, you shaved your hair? Because I used to go...
Because he knew you?
Yeah, because it was down the road. It was a really lovely sort of pizza joint, and they were lovely guys. He'd go, you shaved your hair? Yeah. You look really badass now.
Was it a Yorkshire Asian?
Yeah,
With
something
their
like that. I'm not
amazing
sure actually. No, I think they were Greek. I'm not 100%. So
it's harder accent to do.
Yeah, and it was, but it was just, and this guy had an amazing sort of like thing on his head. I couldn't.
Quite bouffant,
bouffant, and a good, like pointy sort of thing.
I don't know if this happens to you. It probably does with the very similar hair you and I have. But after a shower, wash hair, dry hair, poof.
Oh yeah.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. That's why I used to shave it.
But my wife calls it floofy, and she loves it. So
see, my wife does as well. She thinks it looks
and
cute.
It looks awful.
I absolutely hate it.
It looks so.
It looks not unkempt, but unstyled. Like you haven't bothered to do anything with it. Yeah. I'm wondering, Matt, did you ever have long hair or anything? Have you always had short hair?
No. I tried growing.
Dallied with. You had a little.
Yeah, but I've got it. It doesn't really grow long. It sort of grows out.
Mine does that.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ever see me with long hair?
Yeah, of course.
It was horrible.
Yeah,
it was way too thick.
Yours did.
Yeah, went outwards, which sounds like it happens with Matt as well.
Yeah, well, mine did initially, and then it reaches a certain length, and then it sort of goes down. But mine was always still like a big nest of confusion.
Yes.
But what's so cool? I when I was, a while back when I was headbanged for the first time in a thing again. What I really missed, because the first band that went on all had amazing long hair, and they were all really just going for it, wanging their head around. And I started headbanging. I was like,
I've got nothing.
I haven't got a hair to flap around. I got.
The long-haired metalers don't just headbang. They will rotate the head. Yes, so it goes around and around. There might be a name for it, but I don't know.
And the other thing I really loved, I used to when we studied at this place effectively called the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and you could walk up on the hills and stuff like. I loved walking out there when I had long hair and walking up on the hills and letting my hair blow in the wind dramatically.
Feel like you're...
Especially if you've got a long coat and that's also blowing in the wind dramatically.
I feel like you're in Wuthering Heights, right?
Yeah, well, fuck Wuthering Heights.
Oh, absolutely. But it's a very windswept tale, right?
Yeah, for me it was much more, you feel like you're in a more of an action movie or a Lord of the Rings something.
Something dramatic.
Something dramatic, not something, though... fucking Wuthering Heights.
Like it's really causing you pain.
I'd take Withnail and I over Wuthering Heights.
What's wrong with Withnail and I?
Nothing really.
Explain Withnail and I to an audience who might not know it, or a foreign audience.
Well, it's Richard E. Grant, who is famous from 1,000 things, including the recent the being the bad guy in.
Come on, you can get it.
Logan.
In Logan? Oh, what, the Wolverine movie?
Yeah, the Wolverine movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's the chief scientist. There we go. That's a good one.
But he's also plays the Scarlet Pimpernel in the classic BBC series, and I think he's the definitive Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah.
Not that there have been many.
He and Paul, the guy who was Mr. Bush in Hornblower. I can't remember. He was also the Doctor Who in the Doctor Who movie, which wasn't very good.
No, it's widely panned. Though apparently, Doctor Who fandom really loves his audio dramas he did afterwards because his performance was really good, but the movie and the writing and the production of the movie was really bad. But yeah.
Yeah, Within an Eye is a tale of two kind of layabout artistic types, kind of poetic types who take a whole bunch of booze and drugs and they go away for the weekend to the countryside and get fucked up, and it's almost the British version of the French ennui. It's kind of having an ennui and a nihilism about life and kind of fucking yourself up. Also, very famously, has the Camberwell carrot scene. Do you remember what the Camberwell carrot is?
Penises or something?
No, drugs.
Oh, no, don't remember this.
So it's the guy who I think is in Wayne's World. It's the guy who talks like this, who's got that kind of lispy voice.
Right.
He talks about the Camberwell carrot. And it's a massive joint that's really big at one end, I think, and you get absolutely fucked on it. But it's a very dirty, kind of downtrodden type of movie.
Yeah, and it's sort of like in a horrible house in the middle of shit nowhere.
That's right, and it's also got Richard Griffiths, who...
Of course, who's horrible in it.
Yes, and...
Very rapey.
International audiences will definitely know Richard Griffiths because he was Uncle Vernon in the Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
Horrible big fat guy who locks Harry up in his cupboard and blah, blah, blah.
He was also in Gormenghast
as
the chef, the disgusting chef at the beginning who, like, tortures all his sort of underlings and stuff like that.
He was also in the History Boys movie.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
No, it was a very famous stage play. I kind of half rate it. But why do we get onto With Now Night? It doesn't matter because I'm in charge. So before we finish, I'd like to come back to old Hemsworth. A couple of points. We'll come back to beards in a moment because it actually has a lot of relevance with the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Because everyone's growing beards in the MCU.
But before we do that, do you know the other Hemsworths, plural?
Oh, yes.
So Chris Hemsworth, of course, is Thor. Do you know the other more famous, well, not more famous than Chris, but more famous than the third one? And name begins with L.
Liam.
Well done. And what's the biggest thing he's been in, do you know? Matt can shout it out if he remembers. No one knows, so it's the Hunger Games.
Oh, shit.
He's like the burly love interest for J-Law.
Right, of course. Yeah, and... Because the other guy, I remember. I think it's actually in The Good Place where they're all on about the fact which Hemsworth brother, and they end up sort of meeting. And and the younger Hemsworth plays like Liam Hemsworth in it, and she meets up and there's a thing, and
because there was a third Hemsworth who's in a TV series that you and I both watch, which is Westworld.
Of course, and he looks exactly like. How did I forget it? What's his name?
I don't know what his first name is. The other Hemsworth.
I should know, but
and my best Hemsworth fact, which I probably told you before in private, but not in the podcast, which is that the Hemsworth boys, their uncle was the real life inspiration for Crocodile Dundee, the character. Yeah, because they're Aussie boys, the Hemsworth. They're all Aussies, right? Chris Hemsworth, Liam Hemsworth, and the other Hemsworth, whose names we've forgotten. Sorry, Hemsworth. Their uncle was the real Crocodile Dundee. And as much as he's a kind of folk hero, he died in a meth-fueled shootout with Aussie cops. Which is both an amazing thing, but also totally kind of antithetical to the Crocodile Dundee kind of shtick, let's say. Yeah, so, last thing, beards, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Chris Hemsworth of Thor, really decent beard.
Yeah, he holds the full beard well. George Clooney actually does too. And very few that do.
Just remember the other Chris. We had Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, who's Star-Lord in the MCU, Chris Pine, who's Captain Kirk in the Star Trek reboot.
Of course, yeah.
And... the other Chris from the Marvel Universe is...
Not Akabusi.
Matt.
Well, it'd be Captain America, wouldn't it?
Yes, who is Chris... It's the same name as a radio DJ from the UK, Chris Evans. Yeah. Who also has a great beard.
Oh, these days, yeah.
Right? Is it a coincidence that all these Marvel guys have beards? Is it something deliberate, or is it just a natural happenstance?
Absolutely, I think it's hugely deliberate. Because even Thor's beard at the beginning was quite thin and barely there. I feel like beards do this, I think, which is as the sort of series has gone on, they've all sort of become more grizzled and jaded.
That's right.
And have to grow sort of these, like Captain America shouldn't really have a beard, but like him at the end has got a fantastic beard because he's become grizzled and jaded and less this idealised character that he had started off as. In the first Iron Man, didn't Tony Stark have a very, manicured... It's quite tidy. Yeah, and it's sort of, it's much... I think it's still very similar, but he's really, really old now, and you could sort of see the difference between him and that original movie.
And going back to a few things we talked about today, in the Wild Wild West movie, Kenneth Branagh's character, who is all about spiders, has a giant mechanical spider. His beard is shaped into a spider, if you remember.
Yes.
Pointlessly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Last point on beards, and I have to get it out there every time I
You
can
do
talk
love
about
beards.
it. Every time I can talk about it. But the best movie for beards, if you're a beard fan or beard enthusiast, I would highly recommend you watch Das Boot.
Yeah.
The original, the full 6-hour Das Boot, where you can watch their beards grow from the beginning.
Almost in real time.
Almost
yeah.
in real time, from the beginning to the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, they're all like very clean shaven,
Tidy beards.
sort of these German submariners.
Submariners.
That's the word I was looking for.
Some people say submariner. I prefer submariner.
Yeah, submariner sounds way better.
The Americans say submariner.
But that's a marina sounds like the like a port.
Where a boat goes, yeah.
Just that gradual growth as things get worse, they stop caring about their appearance. And what's the main actor in that's called? He's very famous.
It's
He's in June.
Jürgen Prochnov or
Jürgen
Prochnow?
Prochnow.
Prochnow, yeah.
I think it's Prochnow.
I don't know how to pronounce it, yeah.
But his beard is just like a proper like chiseled.
A maritime beard, really,
Maritime
is the only way of
beard.
describing it.
And finally, on beards from history.
Welcome to the Beard from History podcast. That's what we should be doing, right?
The best beard, one of the best beards in history. I don't have about the character of the man. I don't know, but I've seen lots of movies that show him in both good and bad lights. But the last Tsar of Russia, Tsar Nicholas II. There's something about that beard which is it's kind of almost like the way some hipsters have their beard, which is very sort of smooth and curled and just a wonderful sort of
Twizzling.
not totally twizzled, but just very refined.
Oh, I get
and sort
you.
of kingly look, and he just always has this. It's one of the best beards. So
I guess,
Google Tsar Nicholas II. Everyone.
I guess like the Kaisers of yesterdecades and Kaiser Wilhelms of Europe, and connected to our royal family as well. I don't dig those beards so much when if you have to apply product to your beard.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of that.
Not so much. Yeah, I'm going to ask a last question from the deck because we've only used one, I think, from the beginning. The question is: are there enough of these? Are there enough Hemsworth dolls, action figures? You can decide.
Enough. There are plenty.
I mean, that is true.
There are plenty, but there will come a point when Hemsworth is. Though I don't think his role as Thor will ever be forgotten when he's no longer Thor anymore. Maybe 20 years where people have sort of kind of forgotten, and these toys won't be produced anymore. That's for sure. But in terms of like quantity, there's already way enough.
Do you know what's going to happen now? You made me think of it when you said that in the future, these things will be, let's say, more forgotten. People will remake these. Just like everything else is remade these days, like remaking RoboCop, they'll remake the Marvel movies, which doesn't need to happen because they're just neat little movies
Just make
already.
different Marvel movies.
Yeah, just keep going. I mean, they'll do that for the time being, but eventually they'll
they'll
come
just
back.
go and reboot Superman again.
Soft reboot, hard reboot, remake, all-female reboot.
Yes.
All-female reboot of Superman. All right, well, that'll take us very neatly to the end.
Yeah, lovely.
I mean, I say neatly, there's no real way of ending it other than because we want to.
Because we're done. We're done with you.
Go away.
Yeah, please leave.
And
You
then come
especially.
back.
Yeah. It's been lovely having you. Thank you so much for popping along.
You can find us on YouTube, Speculation Station. You can find our website, thespeculationStation.com.
Yeah, head over to iTunes. You could just find us, or on Stitcher, or anywhere where those sweet podcasts are found.
Just go online and find it. You know how to do it.
Use the Tinterclicks.
That's what it's called, Tinterclicks.
Or Tinterwebs.
And that brings us back to our Yorkshire accent. Now we started this
lovely.
whole thing.
Well-
So, goodbye from me.
Oh, goodbye from me.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye from Matt.
Goodbye from Matt.
Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye.
That was nice indeed. Bye.
Champion. See you later.
Bye. See you later. Aye, cheese.
Bye. Fuck off.
Speculation Station.